Small groups are a huge part of what we do here at church, but for a lot of us, they're also something we haven't really thought too much about before. Maybe it's because we already have our own friend group. We have that group of friends that we're really close with. We found our fam at school and in our neighborhood and on our team. We don't really need our church trying to force us to have any more relationships. Maybe if we're completely honest, we'd admit that some people in our small group actually get on our nerves. They're not the people that we would choose to spend time with outside of church. So why do we have to do this at church? Maybe it's just a personality thing. It could be that we're shy and that small group makes us feel kind of scared. Or maybe our grandmother makes us do this whole church thing, so being in a small group really wasn't our choice. Honestly, with this list, I could go on and on about how we might feel about small groups. And really, there are a million things that might make us think we shouldn't even show up or make the effort. There's so many reasons we could look at small groups and think, what's the point? Does small group really even matter? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Your small group has the potential to be one of the best things that ever happens to you, and a lot of that actually depends on you. You might be surprised to discover that the writers of the Bible actually had something to say about small groups. Sure, churches weren't meeting back then the way that we do now. There weren't big buildings or live stream youth group services or summer camps or potluck dinners or Thursday nights. But there were a bunch of people who were dedicated to meeting together. People who believed in and followed Jesus. People who didn't want to do this whole faith thing all on their own. There's a book in the Bible called Hebrews, and it was written by some of these people called, you guessed it, the Hebrews. Now, the Hebrew people knew a little something about the idea of church. They had a long history of going to the temple, a place where they could grow closer with God and connect with Him. This was the way that they could grow in their faith. It was basically how they did church back then. But then Jesus came to earth, and all of that changed. Suddenly, people didn't need to be in the temple to be close to God. When Jesus came, He created a new way for people to connect with God. In fact, Jesus became the way for people to connect with God. So instead of people having to spend time in the temple and grow in their faith, they could connect with God through Jesus anytime and anywhere. But all of this was new to the Hebrew people. And because of that, they probably struggled to understand what the point of this new way of connecting with God looked like. So the author of Hebrews wrote this to help them. Check it out. So here the writer changed the way that people saw church. Now, the way to grow in your faith has more to do with the people than a specific building. Church isn't only about showing up to get closer to God. It's about showing up to get closer with each other. It's about people gathering to encourage each other, cheer each other on, and lift each other up as we grow in our faith. It's about community. And honestly, isn't that kind of what we all want? I think we all want a friend group that motivates each other towards what's good. One that encourages each other and loves each other and hangs out on a regular basis. We want people to listen to us when we struggle, to fight for us when we're down, to help us see different perspectives, and to care about us no matter what. The good news is our small groups can be exactly that. They can be the very thing that the writer of Hebrews was talking about here. But to get there, you and I have to be willing to do some work. See, in a world where small groups can be either great or not so great, there's one thing that you can control to change the way your small group works. You. The person who ends up making the biggest difference in the way your small group feels is you. The decisions you make within your group can make it or break it. The attitude you have going into it can make it better or make it worse. The way you and I think about, talk about, and treat other people, it all makes a difference. So the question is, what kind of small group do you want? If you're looking to find the kind of community that the writer in Hebrews was talking about, then we have to be willing to let it start with us. You see, get out of small group what you put into small group. Part of this whole church thing is about motivating and encouraging the people that we meet with while we're here. It's about sharing our stories and questions and doubts so that we feel safe to do the same. It's about being honest about what's going on in our lives so that we can support and encourage each other. So if you want to be a part of a small group that does all of that and more, you'll get there by doing it as well. So if you want to have the best small group experience possible, you've got to start putting more into your small groups. If we get out of small group what we put into small group, then how can we be sure that we're doing our part to put the best possible effort? Well, I think it starts with these 3 things. The first one is showing up. Commit to giving it a chance and being open to what could happen. Even if your only goal in small group at first is to simply keep showing up week after week. Keep doing it. Keep going. Show up at church. Show up at the same hour with the same group every week. Show up by participating with a group text. Show up when someone in your group needs your help. Show up for people in your small group by going to their play or going to their birthday party or their games. Show up with an open mind and a positive attitude. Put that in week after week, and I promise your outlook on the group will begin to change. Second, being trustworthy. Protect your group by making sure you're respecting everyone who's there. When someone says something that you disagree with, pause, think about it before responding. Don't repeat what's shared in the group with people outside of the group, and better yet, take time to thank the people who choose to share what's going on in their lives. Lead by example right here. If you want your group to be a safe place where everyone feels comfortable, then do your part to make it one by being trustworthy for your group. And the last thing, owning it. You have ownership in your small group. If you get out of the small group what you put into the small group, then you have to own your part. You have to be willing to make some things that you want to happen actually happen in your group. If you want people to share more, start sharing. If you want people to feel included, then take the first step to include them. Send the text, join the conversation, welcome anyone who's new, who hasn't been around for a while. Be willing to talk things out when you need to. Remember, this is your group, so own it. Put in what you need to make this small group possible. And last, here's my hope for all of us today, that we'll commit to showing up to small groups with a new perspective, that we'll look at small group as a safe space to grow closer to God, that we'll commit to putting our best selves into our group so that we can all walk away feeling closer, stronger, and more connected. Remember, you get out of small group what you put into small group. And as you go to talk about all of this with your group today, I want you to think about this question. What's one thing you want to get out of your small group?